Well, here we are again.
Here we are again.
We are back with our feature, COVideos.
Yes.
Here to talk classic and modern movies for your quarantainment.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Yeah, did you just come up with that one?
Well, I've been workshopping.
Okay, all right, fair.
Are we going with that?
Yes. Let's go with that. Quarantainment.
All right.
I like it.
We're gonna stick with that then.
Okay.
Yeah, we're back to watch a pair of films. Which, classic. What is classic anymore?
Oh boy. I don't know. It changes all the time. Right?
I have a Star Trek podcast. It's called Enterprising Individuals. And I talk about talking about classic Star Trek episodes. And it's like, well, what do you mean? Do you mean the 50-year-old ones or the 30-year-old ones?
Well, that's
isn't
true.
30 years? Isn't that classic?
Yeah. I think maybe it is.
About the time that our first pick tonight was coming out, Casablanca came out 30 years before that.
Yeah.
And I think you probably call that a classic movie.
Yeah, for sure.
When we make, but of course, black and white to color, big jump. When we make the jump to 3D sense around, feel around experience, or when we're all watching movies in VR or reality holodeck or whatever, we'll look back on the 8K, the crispest 16K thing you could think of, and it's going to feel like
super
watching
old.
black and white bogey.
Yeah.
Where, the next Vin Diesel movie that, you are Vin Diesel or whatever the future of entertainment is, it's going to feel, even if it was only a year difference, it'll feel centuries old.
Yeah, no, you're right.
But we're not dealing with that today.
No,
though.
not today.
We kind of are. And we'll get to that.
I guess.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about your pick? This is the
Yes.
next, so fill people in if they don't know the story.
Okay, in case you don't know the story, I have a list of films that I have not seen. And I've just, whenever I've been like, oh yeah, I haven't seen that, I just goes down on the list. So it's kind of random. Maybe putting one on the list reminded me of another one, but it's
a list
pretty random.
Yeah, and the list has accreted over the course of years.
Yes.
This is just like a list that you started keeping like, hey, I should watch this movie or that movie.
Exactly. It's like, well, I've heard so much about this film. I should watch this film.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I want to watch these films, so I put them down on a list because I wanted to remind myself that, hey, put this in your film catalog, to watch for later.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that is basically the story of my picks. Do you want to go over your picks, or do you want to save that for your pick?
No, we're doing your movie.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, so I guess my pick for this time was the movie Rocky.
Rocky. 1976.
Yes.
Directed by John G. Avildsen. Starring Sylvester Stallone.
Yes.
Written by
Rocky. Sylvester Stallone.
That's right.
Which I think he's helped write a couple of his other films, or written some of his other films. Isn't that right?
Well, when you this was kind of like, I think Lords of Flatbush was like the first film where somebody's like, oh, who is this guy? And I hope he didn't just recently star in a porno.
I don't know that story.
Well, we're not talking about Sylvester Stallone. We're talking about Rocky.
That's true.
But yeah, this is the first one where it's like, this is like, his big breakout film.
Yeah.
Won an Oscar for Best Picture and Best Director, nominated for Screenplay.
Okay.
Didn't win, but nominated. And so if you come onto the scene and you're, he's a writer, actor.
Yeah.
But never director, I don't think. He's a writer, actor. That's just going to be, every time we put you into these really dumb action movies going forward that are probably underwritten as it is, he's just gonna hey, boom my toe in there and just what if we did this?
A little bit?
Yeah, right. You know?
Okay.
It's like if Schwarzenegger could write, like his name would be all over everything, right? He'd be writing this, he'd be writing that.
No, absolutely.
Blame Eraser on him, but that was his that's how he was built. Way before the shooting and the Rambo and everything else.
Yes.
He was just a Yeah, he was a bodybuilder. I mean, he was never. I don't think he was ever competitive like Schwarzenegger, but he was a big guy, and
Yeah.
he was cut
Yeah.
for the 70s, and
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, like a Carl Weathers, for example.
Oh, Carl Weathers. I always get excited when I see his name billed in a film because I'm like, ooh, this is going to be good. And I don't know if maybe that's slightly tinged by the way I was introduced to Carl Weathers, which, believe it or not, was on Arrested Development.
Well,
but I think he adds a special little something, his own little special sauce, if you will.
he was young in this film.
He was.
Yeah, he was 28.
Yeah.
So Stallone was, Rocky is 30, and Stallone was 30 when this was made. But so you think about Carl Weathers is just like a institution,
He's a guy who's been there.
Yeah, he was
for a lot of stuff,
28
yeah.
back then. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
But lucky to have him all these years.
Yeah, exactly. He's great. There's some great character moments, I think, in this film overall. It takes place in Philadelphia, of course. You get the famous scene with him like running up the steps and stuff like that, and of course the first time we see him do it, he can't quite make it.
No, you have to bake that in early on.
Build up to it. So let's see.
And the dog.
Oh my god, but so she gives him the dog. She's like, for your runs. We
the dog
see him go on like that one run
what
with him.
What do you want the dog to do? Like, bite Apollo Creed in the nuts outside of the stadium?
No.
How do you bring the dog back?
No, I know, but like she even like at one point like she moves in with him, and it's like, where's the dog?
Yeah,
and it's a tiny 1-bedroom apartment, so and a huge dog. You would see the dog.
Yeah.
So did he go back to the pet store? I don't know.
There are knives just stabbed into the walls, and then they apparently were just like, make this a real dude's paradise here.
Right.
He's wrapped the pillar that goes through his crappy apartment in a mattress so he can practice, and then he's got there's like knives,
darts,
yeah.
But I think
darts in the door.
I think when she moves in, he lets her do a little redecorating.
No,
I mean, they're decorated for Christmas. I know that much, and I don't think he would have bothered if she wasn't there. I guess I'll rewind a little bit just to go back to
Sure.
things I guess I knew about the film before actually seeing it. Of course, the music, the steps montage. I knew about him drinking egg yolks. I don't know, that was mentioned to me at some point, or I heard about that, but I didn't really know what the story was. Like, I knew he was a boxer. Mm-hmm. That's about all I knew, so I didn't know what the setup was. So you and I think it's interesting too, the way you're kind of introduced to it, because it's like you really get to know Rocky more or less as a person.
Yeah.
I think first.
Yeah.
Before the basic setup of the film is presented. So, it's like, well, he's a boxer. He's okay, but he's not that great. And then you learn from Mick, the guy who runs the gym, that like he could have really been something, but
yeah.
Wow, at 30 he's washed up.
Yeah, Well, yeah, and like up to, I don't know the exact timestamp, but like up to the point that Carl Weathers is, looking around for somebody to replace the guy he was going to fight in this exhibition match.
Yeah.
And lands on the Italian Stallion.
Yeah.
Sounds like a monster movie.
Right.
Up until, and sometime after that point, it's just a character drama. Like, it's just
Yeah.
about this guy who is a pure soul and a kind guy, if not cursed with a vast intellect, who is just trying
Right.
to like fit into his neighborhood when things are just kind of passing him by, and he's just got no real drive or ambition. He doesn't know what he's doing with himself, and then it's like this thing that sort of causes a change in him. And I don't, I think it's got a very basic structure, but it just works. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't, it could have been anything. Like, of course, this spawned, I think it's like 7 sequels, because there's 2 through 5. There's Rocky Balboa, which is, technically Rocky 6. Then there's Creed 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Which are all about now he's going to fight Mr. T. Now he's going to fight, whatever.
Right,
like,
right.
It's not the sports side of it takes over, but the sports is just the backdrop of this. It's kind of secondary to the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wasn't expecting that.
And the only theme that kind of runs under it is that, Carl Weathers as Apollo Creed represents but also sort of mocks and takes for granted the idea that this is America. In America anybody has a shot. Anybody can make something out of themselves.
Right.
Not really believing it and coming out as Washington on Valley Forge,
yes.
At the end. And it's just it's just about a guy who takes, I don't know if he even believes that necessarily. He's just fighting for himself really, but who kind of makes that comes true for him.
Yeah.
And of course, it really comes true because he becomes a famous rich boxer in the sequels. But it's not really about, I got to train in the snow in the mountains and push up logs and stuff like that to beat this guy. It's never really about that. That's what all the subsequent films are really about. Except
Sure.
2.
Right. I think it's interesting too. We never see Carl Weathers train.
No.
Which is fine. I'm not complaining. But that was a definite choice. So we don't know how seriously he's taking it, and we get the idea from the beginning of the match, him coming in as Washington, and then him putting on the big star-spangled hat and whatnot, and pointing at him he's not taking this super seriously. And maybe it is what you said, this is supposed to be an exhibitionist match. So maybe that's why. But you feel like it's because he thinks this guy, he's not really a contender.
Yeah.
For the championship, so it's not going to be a big deal. Even the first part of the actual match, he's smiling at him,
yeah.
And it's not. I don't think he's chiding him necessarily, but it's kind of oh, come on, we're having fun here. Isn't this fun?
I want you.
Yeah,
I want you.
He's just being kind of silly, and then
because
he sees that Rocky's taking this seriously, and then he gets serious.
And it's called. I mean, it's in sports terms, it would just be nobody has sanctioned this. It's really just an exhibition bout, but they do call it a championship match. Supposedly the belt is on the line. And he's just, he's just here to continue to promote himself, to make money off the purse, and to knock the crap out of this tomato can. That's what he expects.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I think you see in the later films is that they do a really good job of, yes, it's all about the fight, but they tell the story better of the fight. The story doesn't get told real well, but there aren't a lot of beats, I don't think. The whole point is, it's sort of like, if you ever watched the Disney movie Miracle, about the Miracle on Ice.
I don't think I've actually ever seen that.
About the U.S. Olympic team beating the Russians.
Yeah.
That game is not well suited for a dramatic sort of movie because if I remember correctly, the U.S. goes up by 2 at the break, at the half or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then the rest of the game is they just have to keep the Russians from scoring. And so they're 2 yeah, we did it. Yeah, thanks, Herb, sort of goals. But then the rest of the game is all we have to do is just keep the Russians from scoring. And that just kind of turns into a montage that ends with, we won. It's not there's a last minute buzzer beater from the halfway line or something like that to for them to win.
Right.
And the whole thing about this match is that all Rocky has to do is just last 15 rounds. And so we have a couple exchanges with them at the beginning, and we get the thing where it's kill the body and the head will die, and he goes after Apollo, and Apollo realizes, oh, this is going to be a thing.
Yeah.
But then we have it's not even a montage, it's just the lady that dressed just like the Statue of Liberty comes out, and her numbers go from 3 to 13, and it's oh, I guess a match has been going on this entire time.
Right.
But there isn't a lot of story being told, and that's fine. It's not important really to the movie. We just see then we see the last round, and we see Rocky just last till the end, and that's his victory,
Right.
But it in Rocky IV, for instance, there's a whole back and forth thing where Drago and him are exchanging blows, and the crowd is against him, but then now the crowd's on his side, and the Russians are chanting USA,
right?
And then the Russians in his corner are no, this isn't good, we gotta stop this, and there's a whole story that gets told in the match. That doesn't exist so much in this.
Right.
But then, you want to know what's up with Paulie.
Yeah, right. Paulie and Adrian. Paulie is best friend, who's a character, and Adrian, Paulie's sister, who, we meet at the very beginning, and she's incredibly shy.
Yeah, but he F's the shy out of her.
I know,
and
right?
then she goes out and buys some pantsuits.
And she looks great.
Colorful berets.
Yeah,
instead of the drab ones.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I like so much. And the movie, it's weird. It just goes to, the character of Rocky, but they at weird times decide to, put all these, Rocky lines in sometimes. So sometimes Rocky's just, going on endlessly about how you have to keep a good reputation. The guys will think you're a whore.
Right.
And then other times it's like, I want you. Oh, I guess he wants me. Yeah, thanks, Rock. And so when Adrian runs in at the end, she's like, Rocky. He's like, where's your hat?
I know. He's like, you lost your hat.
Yeah.
I don't think she cares. And I think that's, emblematic of she's so focused on him. And I thought it was interesting too, here she's been supporting him this entire time, and she can't. There's something about the fight, she hasn't said, I can't watch you fight, but we kind of more or less get that. But then she comes out for the last round and is watching it,
right?
So it's like she's compelled to watch and be there to be supportive of him. But yeah, I think you were right when you said before, this is unlike a lot of other sport films, because it's almost more of a character movie, and they're subtle comedic moments.
Yeah,
sprinkled throughout.
If I don't remember saying that, but if I said that, it's because it isn't about. I mean, there are a lot of sports movies where spoiler alert for the Bad News Bears, they don't win that game
right
at the end, but they come together as a team and they prove something to themselves. And this actually came, I think this is after the Bad News Bears.
Oh, really?
Maybe the same year, 76?
I have no
around
idea.
the same time.
Sure.
And so it's more, but I think it resonates because we see how unhappy Rocky is, as emotionally uncomplicated as he is. He's talking to his turtles and his fish. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's lonely and he needs somebody, and he gets somebody, and also he needs to prove to himself in a realm that his uncomplicated psychology can understand and value. The fact that he had this talent as a boxer and maybe still does, and he's just got to prove something to himself, and he does it. And then we're cursed with 7 more of these things.
I know.
If only he'd won. If only he had beat Creed, maybe there'd be no more Rocky pictures.
Well, and the end of the movie came, and I remember I turned and I looked at you, and I was like, "So who won? Did he win?"
Yeah, it's not really what is supposed to be important to the audience at that point. But
I know.
Supposedly, this is really based on. And Stallone has gone back and forth on this. Stallone is a self-mythologizer to the nth degree.
Is he? Okay.
But supposedly he wrote this in 3.5 days.
Really?
Well, the beats you could do easy. And from what I understand, on set, there's a lot of improvising.
Sure.
On set, especially from, Burt Young and Stallone himself. But it was based on the match between Muhammad Ali and Chuck Wepner.
Okay.
It was a similar situation where it's 75. So this is Ali's, he's tapped out at this point. He's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And this is supposed to be just just a fun match kind of. It was a championship match. And Wepner didn't win, but he kind of went the distance and nobody expected him to do that. And so you've got Apollo Creed, a guy with a big mouth, showy. It's very Muhammad Ali type.
Yeah.
And, And of course, he's called Rocky. It's based partially on Rocky Marciano, Italian boxer, and I think also Rocky Graziano as well.
Oh, okay.
Who was another guy who had a movie made about his life too, based on an autobiography or something.
Okay.
So,
we never really learned how did he get the name Rocky? Was that his given name, or did he just take that because he was emulating those boxers?
He's Robert Rocky Balboa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So
that's sort of his
kind of his nickname or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Looks up to he's a hero.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, And like, you know, Stallone was like, I'm trying to think of what United Artists was doing right now. Were they the Bond studio at this point?
I have no
I can't
idea.
remember. But like, he brought the script to them and they loved it. But he's like, well, I'm going to play the role. They're like, okay, all right. Well, we're going to ask James Caan what's going on, and he's like, no, you don't understand. I'm leaving if I don't get to play this.
Right.
And I mean, it's a gamble.
Yeah.
But he takes his shirt off and goes, see, I'm going to play this. They're like, oh, okay. Well, I mean, it's like, it'd save us having to make James Caan look like he can, you know, be a boxer.
Right.
And it cost $1 million and made $225 million. So who was right?
Whoa, that's crazy. But
Yeah.
I mean, everybody likes a story about like an underdog. You know, those are usually pretty popular stories.
I like overdog stories. I root for the First Order.
Oh my goodness.
And let's not talk about Nazi movies. But anyway, yeah, that's who I'm rooting for.
Wow. Yeah. No, it was good. It was enjoyable. And yeah, enjoyed Carl Weathers in it.
Did he get the right turtle food though? There's too many moths.
Was there really a problem with that, or was that just his way in with Adrian?
I don't know. They make a big deal out of him being a lefty too, and I don't feel like it ever. I'm sure it contributes to him sort of messing up Apollo, but it's never like a huge deal. It's just they set up early that, you know, if Rocky can do one thing, he hits you.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of power, and he's breaking ribs on sides of beef and stuff like that. And so his one tactic is just, you know, get Apollo, you know, off his guard, and then just hammer him like a side of beef. And
right.
That's his whole way to stay alive in the match.
Yeah, you think that because they made such a big deal about him being a southpaw, that would have been a bigger part of the match. Like even one of Apollo's friends or people in his who helped back him, train him, whatever, was like, he's a southpaw. No, don't go with this guy. And he's like, no, I want this guy. You know.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. You think that they would have made more of a bigger deal out of that, but for some reason they didn't.
We get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything else to say?
I don't think so. No.
All right. Well, there you go.
Yeah, Rocky. Recommend it.
You know, Shazam was set in Philadelphia.
Oh.
I don't know if it was supposed to be like a reference to Rocky, but he does do his lightning thing on the steps of the whatever.
I hadn't thought about that. How could that not be a reference to Rocky?
Yeah, I don't know. You have to. Well, you got to go out of your way because
to film
it's
there.
not. I don't think it's. Yeah, it's not like supposed to be Fawcett City. Like it's not doubling for anything. I think they just live in Philadelphia.
Right. So. Right. No. Yeah. That sounds familiar now that you mentioned that. Because doesn't his like real mom like live there too?
Oh my God! Let's not even do that. You want to pick Shazam?
No.
That's up to you.
I've already seen that. So
well, okay. So your films you haven't seen. My films are films that I haven't seen in a while or want to revisit. And the rule is, it's not more of a guideline than a rule. Ooh, Ghostbusters. Is that they just sort of a loose connection in between films. So while I'm watching one film, I end up, talking about another. What was the first film that I did?
Sullivan's
Travels.
Yes.
Which led to Mulholland Drive. Both films that deal obliquely or more explicitly with Hollywood.
Yes.
And so I decided to just kill this trend right now with the third pick being The Player. 1992 Robert Altman film, a black comedy satire about Hollywood.
Yes.
And the pitch is... I
see what you did there.
The pitch is a movie studio executive, played by Tim Robbins, is being harassed and stalked by a writer that he basically said no to and frustrated. And so this guy is sending him death threats. Executive thinks he's figured out which writer it is, played by Vincent D'Onofrio, goes to visit him. Visit goes wrong. That writer ends up dead. And so for the rest of the film, Tim Robbins, is trying to live his life still, but is doing it in a self-destructive way, and the cops are closing in, And it's got a real, like, 50s noir kind of vibe, and that's all intentional.
Yes. Wow.
You know, the opening shot, A Touch of Evil, was 6.5 minutes long. A movie that is completely self-aware of itself at every second. It literally begins with a clapboard saying, "The player," and I'm assuming Robert Altman calling action as the tracking shot begins that starts the film.
Yes.
A tracking shot that is, I don't know, probably pretty long.
Probably pretty long.
The entire setup is all one big tracking shot. So.
Yeah, yeah. What a young Vincent D'Onofrio.
What a young everybody.
Yes.
And there are over 65 actors and celebrities who appear as themselves. Mm-hmm. I think Altman just, like, emptied out his black book, basically.
I think
and just called everybody he knew.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Receiving credit at the end as, you know, appearing as themselves. And I was thinking about it. 51% of them all dead now.
I know, right?
You know, as you're going through the movie, you're like, it's James Coburn. Jack Lemmon.
Burt Reynolds.
Sidney Pollack. Burt Reynolds. Yeah. So everybody's dead. Brian James.
Yeah. Yeah.
all dead.
I know.
And, like, this movie is self-consciously plastered with posters of noir films.
Yes.
Of the 40s and 50s. Mm-hmm. Specifically, like Mr. M. But it's the 1951 American remake of M, not the Fritz Lang M, which was not a Hollywood film. Yes.
Oh, okay.
And so it's plastered with all those things, thinking about, like, the Casablanca, you know, bogey is past by 1992. Like, all these people are dead. Now here we are, 30 years past the player,
right?
And all the people in the player are dead. And it's like,
I know.
It's kind of depressing.
It is, and Robert Altman's dead, too.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. It's it is depressing.
A movie about death.
Yeah. Well,
although I thought it was funny that there's a subplot in the film, or not even a subplot really, about one of the films that Tim Robbins is producing, stars Scott Glenn, still alive, and Lily Tomlin still alive. Mm-hmm. And, like, they say, the director's giving Lily Tomlin a hard time. This is way before David O. Russell. That was, like, almost prophetic.
Yeah.
Although, you know, a lot of the jokes in this are sort of inside jokes. I don't know. Like, David O. Russell's a piece of shit, but maybe Lily Tomlin's hard to work with?
Whoa. Let's hope not.
Yeah, I hope not.
Yeah. I like Lily Tomlin. Anyways.
This is a great movie. I saw this in high school in my pre-mentioned film unit, where we didn't have a film class, but they made us watch a couple films that were specifically chosen to give us an idea of the style of filmmakers, and one of them was this film.
So it wasn't a film studies class, but it was more or less a film studies class?
It was our unit. It was our film unit.
Oh, a film unit. Like in your English class?
Our AP English class.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Interesting. So what did you think then compared to now?
Well, I was fascinated by it. Uh-huh. Specifically because, and this is a very sort of anti-Altman film. Like, there are very few huge group scenes where there's just things going on and the camera just, what's Elliot Gould up to? And zooms in on him. And, like, the kind of things that you think of in a Robert Altman film. This is a rather conventional film for him. Mm-hmm. Other than it just, you know, there being tragic comic, you know, it's very serious but very weird sort of things that happen.
Yes.
It's still a Robert Altman film. I actually haven't seen Prairie Home Companion.
I haven't either.
And I can't compare, but this is very different than a Nashville, you know, or a Shortcuts or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I immediately remember thinking, this is very different than the type of films that I've seen. I'm 16.
Right,
and I remember specifically, so spoilers-ish for the film, there's a scene near the end where Tim Robbins and Greta Scacchi, Harvey's their name, are they're getting it on. Mm-hmm. And it's like the scene where he's trying to confess to her, maybe not the best time.
Yeah, no.
What his involvement in, you know, what's happened.
Yes.
And it's like this, it's a sex scene, but it's all like sweaty throats and Tim Robbins' O-face.
What am I looking at here?
And like just, you know, bebop jazz like in the background. And I remember a girl in class turning to her friend while that was going on and being like, what is even happening? What is this? And just thinking like, I don't know what this is, but this is like different filmmaking than I'm used to, or that I guess that day I started thinking about filmmaking.
Sure.
Like how films don't just come out of a machine, and they're just not like, they don't just appear when they're announced. Like what are the choices that are going on here?
Sure.
And this film's full of choices.
Oh,
Some very self-conscious ones.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. I really enjoyed it, and I mean, as you mentioned, like there's lots of different stars featured in it to different degrees, but I mean, like you like pan across a restaurant and there's any number of like celebrities and everything, but not just that, like the actors who are playing roles in this film, a lot of them are people that you know or recognize. And it just kind of, I haven't seen a lot of Robert Altman's films, but it just feels very much like, good casting choices, and this is like there's a bunch of different actors in this, but it doesn't feel overstuffed. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel like, why are there so many characters? Who cares? Take some characters out. Why is this person here? Like, they all have a reason why that they're there, and they are there to fill out this world and make it more real, even though like part of this film is Hollywood's so unreal.
And they're there to give color too. Like there's, he runs into Malcolm McDowell in the lobby of a hotel, and he's like, "Oh, hey, how's it going? You want to badmouth me? You do it to my face."
Yeah.
And he's like, what was that about? And then just for fun, like, then they, meet Andy McDowell later, and well, we just ran into Malcolm McDowell. She's like, oh, I'm not related to him.
Right.
It's always weird, too, when you have a movie where, you've got a lot of classic movie stars or people, Jeff Goldblum shows up as himself in this.
I know.
And that's probably the youngest or the closest he's ever been in age to a woman that he's supposedly dating is in this movie, because 30 years on,
I know.
Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
They keep staying the same age.
Yeah.
But anyway, still like him? Everybody loves Jeff Goldblum.
I think I compartmentalize. So
yeah, I think we all do.
Get past it. But,
I think that we all do. Supposedly the sex, and I've never thought of Altman as being like this way, but supposedly they had landed on that sex scene because Altman wanted nudity from Scotchy, and she didn't want to do it.
Oh.
So,
okay.
Anyway.
All right.
Somebody who I don't feel like she's been in a ton of stuff.
I don't think I've really seen her before.
Yeah, I think she was in Presumed Innocent. That was like a big role for her with Harrison Ford. But
okay.
I think she's good, but I just haven't seen her in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Can't remember what I was going to say. Something about
Do you think
Malcolm McDowell.
The compromise they got with her, besides like the mud bath and that sex scene,
is to not wear a bra ever?
Yes. That's exactly where I was going. Yes.
I think
mean, she's very like...
I think she's an artist.
She's an artist, and like she always wears white. She's eccentric,
Right.
So... But,
speaking of wearing things, the big scene, of course, is the benefit that the studio throws, where like Nick Nolte's there, and Elliot Gould is there, and Cher's there, and they're like, "This is what we'll do. It's a black tie event," but Cher's like, "Screw that! I'm wearing red."
Yes,
but apparently Cher never wears red.
Oh, you're kidding.
No, so they had to like talk her into it. She's like, "Well, I don't want to wear red." And they're like, "No, the bit is you show up to this and you're the only person wearing red." She's like, all right, I guess I'll do that. But she doesn't wear red.
It's not her color.
No, I can't think of ever seeing her in red.
Yeah, now that I think about it, I don't think I really have either, but okay.
It's just like when you think about films that are like a celebration of Hollywood, a certain era, I don't know if they were meant it this way, but this movie is basically like a celebration of Hollywood in the early 90s.
Yes, definitely.
The fact that everybody's like, every pitch is like, we'll get a Julia Roberts type or like a Bruce Willis.
I know. And then they get Julia Roberts and Bruce Willis for the end.
What if you couldn't get him?
Gosh.
Well, you just go back in time and then you just, change all the lines to... It's like a John Cusack type or whatever.
Right.
Cusack's ever been in an Altman movie, has he?
I don't know. That's a really good question. Seems like he would fit right in there, but yeah, I don't know the answer to that one. Yeah. So,
although he was in, you've seen Cradle Will Rock?
No,
well,
I have not.
That's on the bottom of your list now. Episode 30, we're going to watch Cradle Will Rock.
Okay, I'm writing it down, everybody.
I think of Cradle Will Rock as a very Altman-esque film, but that was written and directed by Tim Robbins. So
Cradle Will Rock?
Yeah, it's about the Federal Theater Project.
Okay. What is the movie, I think Tim Robbins is in this, where they, like, create, works in a factory where they create hula hoops.
Hudsucker Proxy.
That's it.
Coen Brothers.
Yeah. Yes. I have seen that one.
Well, I guess it's not on the list then.
I know. Because I was trying to think of, like, what else I've seen Tim Robbins in besides Shawshank Redemption, and that's the only other movie I can think of.
So many other
I
things,
know, but, like, that's the only one that came to my mind, just because it's so ridiculous and out there. It is. It's a weird movie. But yeah. I think it's interesting that we never actually see the guy who's writing him all of these threatening postcards.
Yes.
Even in the end when we hear his voice.
Yes, and I don't know. I've seen this movie a million times. I have no idea whose voice that is. I'm sure I can look it up.
You would think it would be somebody.
Yeah.
But like he even the guy who's been threatening him from the beginning and like put a snake in his car somehow.
Yeah, well.
In this box, when you take the lid off, it just like the size come down. Like you are meticulously like harassing somebody, and then he, I guess, apparently just stopped doing that and was like, well, I got busy, I had to write this movie script, and it's like the story of Tim Robbins' character's life over the past year or so. And he's basically saying, I can be bought for a price.
Yeah, for a director who existed, mainly outside of the studio system for his entire career, this film, ironically, what was this, like a Fine Line or something like that? I think it was. I can't remember what studio it was, but yeah, it was like a New Line Cinema picture.
Okay.
Who are somewhat outsiders themselves. This led to like a resurgence of his career. Like he, had kind of petered off after the heights of Nashville and everything else, and sort of did this, a movie that's just like a middle finger to Hollywood, right? And then it ironically sort of like brought him back, and he, made Prairie Home Companion or whatever,
right? And like,
and it's you'd have to imagine. Like, I think that he did a good job of putting it all on the screen and not letting the bile that he must have felt infect the picture. The one overstep in my mind, the one thing that was probably, this one's for me, was the nya, like at the end.
Oh, I didn't even.
He pulls up to his white picket fence house with his pregnant wife.
Yeah.
And he's like, can you guarantee me that ending? And everything, he's going to get away with it forever. And the score comes up, and there's like a
catch that,
and it's like, whoa,
right. I don't like that.
That's pretty far, but that's maybe, I just imagine that's Robert Altman going, yeah, we're gonna do that.
Well, I love how he says the line that's in the Julia Roberts Bruce Willis movie,
right? Yeah,
traffic was a bitch.
Yeah,
like,
what's it called? The Player.
I like that. Yeah, I know. Wow.
And he destroys. He basically like sets up. So Dean's. Or I was going to say point from way before. Close this parenthetical. It's weird when you see a movie that stars Hollywood stars. Like Peter Gallagher is like, I'm a regular guy, and then like, oh, John Cusack's over there. Like it's which is which. So like when Richard E. Grant and like Dean Stockwell walk in, you're like, oh no, they're playing characters. Okay, and they're so cartoonishly like, no, we're writers, dude.
And they're so eccentric.
And his plan is to sell them out, like basically like that pitch is terrible, and he's going to give it to Peter Gallagher to ruin his career.
Yes.
But then he becomes the studio head, and we don't see the math that he must do, which is, well, now I got to make this thing.
I got to save this
success,
movie. Yeah.
And does it by completely subverting their ideals, and they're on board because, of course, they are. This is Hollywood.
I know.
Yeah.
You think that they would have been like super upset because everything that they said, no stars, no happy ending.
The one guy with integrity died by having his head held under the water until the bubble stopped.
Yeah.
He died in the first act.
Yeah, I know. Wow. Yeah, and you think you get the postcard guy because he calls him the dead man, but it's nope, not the right guy. And
how have we not mentioned Lyle Lovett and Whoopi Goldberg yet?
I don't know. The craziest cops like ever.
I love when Whoopi Goldberg comes to the studio and she's like, "Ooh, can I hold that?" And and this is like a year after she won her Oscar.
I know.
Ghost.
Yeah, no, that was great. And Lyle Lovett is just like, he's just like this weirdo cop and like played totally straight, just maybe a little, okay, he's eccentric. He kills a fly and then he like saves it, which is just weird. But he's a cop, he's a weirdo, but he's on the right side of the law and
we have this to thank for the whirlwind relationship and marriage between Julia Roberts and Lyle Lovett.
Oh my God!
So they met on the set of this movie. Although when were they?
How?
When were they on the set at the same time? Yeah,
and she is young. On
but
movie.
remember, like what Pretty Woman is like 90, 91, and that was her. That was it. That was her breakout.
Yeah.
I mean, she was in Mystic Pizza in like 89 or 90.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like she was probably the name that was on the lips of everybody who came to pitch a thing.
Yep.
Like Buck Henry, just to connect back to when we talked about The Graduate, this movie, Buck Henry pitches The Graduate, Part 2.
Yes, I know.
It's going to be weird, funny, dramatic, with a stroke.
I know. And like, Mrs. Robinson is living with them. Yeah. And then they have a daughter, and she's just graduating. So she's the new graduate. I just thought that was so funny because we just watched that.
I'm amazed they haven't made that.
Right?
I'm amazed Hollywood didn't make that.
Yeah.
Unless like anything that anybody, because everybody who pitches something is like a famous writer or something like that. Although I really only recognize Buck Henry. Unless like part of the deal was any pitch I come up with when we're just riffing here is mine. And then I came up with the Graduate Part 2. All right. I'm taking this to my grave, and I'm going to tell the executor of my estate to not sell this pitch to anybody. This goes in the ground with me.
Yes, exactly.
I'm amazed they haven't done that. Okay, I'll tell my story about this film, and then we'll quit.
Okay.
So, right around the time, it was after this came out, and I think it was before I went to college. But my family, we took a trip to California.
Okay.
To visit our family, my cousins, my uncle, and aunt, but also just to never been to California.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about California is everything that you've heard is true. All the cliches are true, even the contradictory ones.
Mm-hmm.
Everything, it's effing California, man. Mm-hmm. But we went out there, and for some reason we were in the vicinity of Pasadena, and I'm like, I've asked for nothing on this trip. You were going to the Rialto, and we're going to watch a movie at the Rialto Theater. So we did.
Okay.
It was Life is Beautiful.
Oh, wow.
So,
do you regret that?
Well, I apologized to my family afterwards, but truly the bicycle thieves of the 90s.
Sure.
So we watched that, and then afterwards, I got my camera, and we went outside, and we went around the corner, and all of that stuff is not a set. That's all the street.
Oh, yeah?
Around the Rialto. So I took pictures of where Vincent D'Onofrio was peeing on a wall. I took pictures of the parking lot. I took pictures of, it was dry, but I took pictures of where the puddle is, where he drowns. So there's actually a drain there. They had to plug that drain for that scene.
Oh my
so there'd
gosh.
be water down there. And I took pictures of everything.
Wow. Is there a karaoke bar there?
That's a good question.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because I think I looked for that and I didn't see it.
It's interesting because it's kind of like seems like, at least within the world of the film, because I haven't actually been there in real life, But when they're in the parking lot, there's all these signs that seem like they're for other businesses and are in Japanese.
Right.
So it kind of seems, at least within the world of the film, that they're saying like this is a little Japan.
Well,
here.
plus this is, still, this is the early 90s, so we're
Sure.
still like the Japanese are taking over, and they're
Sure.
gonna. And at the beginning, Jeremy Piven
is giving a tour to
giving
some
a
Japanese
tour for presumably Japanese investors.
Yes.
Although this is like right on the cusp of like the beginning of the whatever the opposite of an economic miracle is, like the Japanese Depression that went on through the 90s.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. But still big investors at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, when the film was made.
So anyway, did you like it?
I did. I thought it was really enjoyable. I thought it was really fun. And kind of suspenseful too. I like that you keep guessing like, who is this person writing these postcards? Who is it? But it kind of rubs me the wrong way that Tim Robbins gets away with it. And man, I really feel bad for Bonnie. Like, I feel so bad for her.
Yeah.
Like she did nothing wrong.
Cynthia Stevenson.
Yeah.
Who's great and is still doing stuff today.
Yeah, I've seen her in stuff before.
Yeah, she's in stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was really good. And, it couldn't have ended any other way, because it's almost like it's ironic, because they criticize in the film about how, this is real life, this is what happens, but we got to give it a happy ending. That's how it works.
Right.
And in this, they give it a happy ending, but what you want to see is him punished.
Yes.
But instead, we get the happy ending.
He's married and they're pregnant.
Which is, it's so good. It feels too much. Do you know what I mean? It's like it couldn't have been any other way. Once you do it, you go, I can't believe they did that. But it's like, that's the only way that it could be.
And there's one other thing I want to ask you. So he confesses to her while they're having sex, and you're never...
Or maybe they were just like, laying on top of each other and sweating.
Right.
There was not a lot of room in that sauna. I had to double up.
But like the next day, when they're in the mud bath, like she's kind of looking at him funny, like giving him like the side eye and everything. Like, do you think that like she heard him and she just decided we'll never talk about this again?
She has an abbreviated character arc because she's kind of the manic pixie dream girl.
Absolutely,
or whatever you want. Sorry, Nathan Raven. I think this is the second show in a row, but she's she's the femme fatale, but she's not. He's bad,
right?
And wears progressively darker suits as the film goes on,
mm-hmm.
and she's supposed to be the ice queen, but she's just innocent in all this. And so I think that's the one moment that we get, because she disappears until the end after this.
Yeah,
that she is starting now to worry about. She's the. Does Lady Macbeth corrupt Macbeth, or the other way around?
I think
she's
she
the one
corrupts Macbeth.
Yeah, but she just goes, "You should kill this guy," and then he does it, and she's like, "I don't think you're going to do it."
Right.
She's getting sucked into this morass.
Yes.
Which they are literally in, because we go from that, Herb now being kind of complicit because he's confessed it to her, and then the next scene they are literally up to their necks in mud or shit.
Right.
And he's got the mud mask on. Like they've made him a monster. He's literally a monster. He is dirty beyond belief at this point.
Yes, absolutely.
And he gets out of the tub, and Tim Robbins is packing.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, tall guy, big feet.
Yeah. Yep. All that is true.
Do we want to add a thing where we talk about what we're going to give him a tease for next time?
Sure. Why not?
Let's do it.
Let's add to the COVideos catalog, cinematography. I don't know what I'm trying to say here.
I don't know either.
Okay, cool.
To the catalog.
Yeah, to the catalog. Thank you. That's what I was going for.
What's
That's
your next
what I was
pick?
reaching for.
Drop.
Taxi Driver is my next pick.
So something light then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want to just like we're just hanging out then in 1976 or something? Like, what do you want to do?
I just was thinking, what are some movies I haven't seen?
Every movie from 1976.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so yeah, we'll be right in the same neighborhood there.
Yeah. How about you?
I want to watch Freaks.
Oh, which they mentioned in this.
Yeah, that's my... Yes.
Okay, all right.
Thanks for confirming what the bid is, which is it has to have some connection. I like the fact that that's such a great... All of the Whoopi Goldberg scenes are so good. There's just not enough of them.
That one was especially good, though.
That was your mother buried. But when they take... It's like this great technique of interrogation, which is they don't like take Tim Robbins into a room and hit him with a phone book.
Right.
She just, brings this guilty man into this thing, and there's all this non sequitur stuff about like, hey, what movie did you see the other night? Oh, we saw Freaks. One of us. Okay. And he's a movie guy, so right away he's like, oh yeah, 1932, Todd Browning. But he's not thinking about like
what the implications
yeah,
of that
and the
are.
weirdness of the situation that he's put himself in. And then she's like, are these your tampons? Or are these my tampons?
I know, and then she's like twirling it around.
Right, yeah, it's great. It's so good.
And it's, it's almost like, is this making you uncomfortable? Should I stop doing it?
So I've never seen Freaks.
I have not
so
either.
it's time to remedy that. And yeah, we're going to watch the 1932 pre-code horror film, Freaks by Todd Browning.
Okay, looking forward to it.
The man who made Dracula. In 1931,
the classic Dracula, which we watched not that long ago.
There's a giant bee coming out of a coffin, and which was successful, and he could have wrote his own ticket, and that ticket, I'm gonna make Freaks.
All right,
Todd Browning, don't ever change. You apparently never can, and so that's what I want to watch.
All right,
so we'll do that.
All right,
and that'll be next time on the show. Say goodnight, Gracie.
Good night, Gracie.
Oh boy. Yeah, we'll be back soon with another episode of COVideos. Talk to you then.